Okay, welcome everyone. So today we will look at load balancing, and then we'll go ahead and then look at the file systems, right? And somebody also mentioned API gateway. If there is time, we'll talk about it. For API gateway, what I will do is I'll just touch on so far what I've seen questions like on, right? Because it's plenty, especially on API gateway. But we'll talk about the endpoints and then what the exams like actually like ask questions on. If you for this one, you can go to Marek's videos. I think it's on the video files that we downloaded. They should be on, I think, here, serverless overviews, right? Uh okay. It's not here. It's not in serverless overviews. I've even let me see the coupling. No, any hands on. Let me see. Monitoring, IAM. I looked at it today. And they are mehwɛ SQL. It's not important. Serverless overviews. Uh-huh. It's here. So it's on serverless overview. All right. The video, the folder title will be serverless overviews from a solutions architect perspective. And then you will see API gateway. So there is the overview and there is hands-on. Okay. And I think on the coupling to there is something on API gateway. I think one of the services integrates with API gateway, so there is also something on API gateway. But the overview will be okay, right? Okay, so load balancing. Somebody wanted to know the difference between the three load balancers. There's actually four, but one is being taken out, right? That's the classic load balancer. It's being deprecated, so we'll not talk about it. So we'll talk about ALB, NLB, and then GWLB, right? Now, for ALB, you route to applications, right, on layer 7. Let me just write it here, right? So you you balance loads, right? You balance loads to applications on layer 7 of the OSI model, right? So the OSI model, let me try and then look at Google if I will see a diagram, OSI model layers. This picture will do. Let me go to images. Why they appear on the side? Opening new tab. Okay, so this is the OSI model, right? The 7 layers of the OSI model. Okay, so we said at the application layer, that is where HTTP, right, resides. This should be an old one, but HTTP, HTTPS are all here. All right, and then we'll talk about this one for the network load balancer. Okay, the network load balancer also um, works at the layer 4. So you see 1, 2, 3, 4. So layer 4 where you have TCP and then UDP. So in the exams, if you get a question that says you want a load balancer that works at either layer 4 or layer 7, sometimes they will not mention it, right? You hear TCP, UDP, then you're looking at network load balancer. If you hear HTTP, HTTPS, or balance loads to applications, then you are looking at the application load balancer, right? So this one works at layer 7, that is HTTP, and then HTTPS. I'll just do it this way. Okay. And you can also balance loads between multiple applications, right? So multiple applications on the same uh, machine, okay, on the same machine. So when you look at like containers, okay, the EKS, the ECS, you can have, you can have multiple applications on uh, container in a container, in a containerized application, right? Maybe you have the users application, you have account application, you have threads or post applications like in one container. You can use a load balancer to load balance it, right? To balance the loads that comes to it, and then we call it rule routing. Okay, rule routing. So let me do this rule. Well, okay, what? All right. So through a routing rule, you are able to say that okay, if the person is visiting the site, right, with maybe so if I do google.com, right, slash images, so we can see I am at what? Google images, right? So let me see slash photos. So it takes me to Google Photos. Okay. So this can be done with a load balancer, right? So that is called rule routing. And when you visit a website, okay, when you visit a website with your mobile phone, the appearance, how the app is appearing is different. A website and application, the appearance is different. And then when you visit with, let's say, a tablet, it's also different from how you see it on a desktop PC or a normal laptop. All right. So there is the rule routing. There are a lot of things, right? Under that. So with rule routing, you can have uh, what you call a query string or parameter, all right, to do your routing. So, but one thing is that when that is done, then it means that there can be load imbalance, all right? You are not able to, because since you are using it based on particular rule, then it means that anytime that's there is a match in that rule, uh, the load is going to go one side. All right. The same thing with sticky sessions. We'll talk about sticky sessions as we move on. Right. So the same thing with sticky sessions as well. Right. So it introduces imbalancing of load, but these are stuff that you can do. Right. We have is a header, is a package header or something. Right. I forgot it, but when you set packets, right? And then payload header as well. All right. So let me do packets. These are just details that I'm trying to give, but that's the concept of load balancing, right? So you are looking at layer 7, and then the layer 7 HTTP HTTPS balancing load between applications on multiple applications, all right? And you can also do redirect. So some websites, let's say if I have awesome 30, then my num lock is off, right? So awesome30.com, all right? With a load balancer, I'm able to redirect that if anybody, so the site can be like the address can be this HTTP, all right, and then awesome30.com. And I can do a routing, right? That, okay, take anytime a person visits this, right, visit my site with this, take it, and then reroute the person to HTTP PS, all right, and then do www.awesome30.com. You get it? But I mean, there's something in Route 53 called records. You have to set up a record that will make this one point to your DNS server, right? If we are able to talk about Route 53, God willing, tomorrow, then that's fine. I will explain that, right? So you have to make sure that this address is also pointing to your DNS server, right? So this is where your SSL certificate is what is installed. Okay, so people, you don't block traffic from here. People can still visit your site with this URL, but then the traffic will be rerouted to here. All right, that is also possible with load balancers. Okay, and if you also see something like, so the HTTP, there are versions, right? So it can also support HTTP version 2. All right, this is how it is written, and or something we call web socket. So anytime you see stuff like this, then you are looking at what? The load balancer. Okay. And then it also has low latency, but then the network load balancer has some ultra low latency than the application load balancer, right? So the delay for application load balancer is 400 milliseconds. Okay. And then for the network load balancer, we have 100, right? 100 milliseconds. So you can see that there is a difference. Okay. So the network load balancer also works at what? The layer 4, and that is TCP and UDP. All right. So if you hear TCP and then UDP, then you are heading towards, you are heading, or you have to tune or psych yourself that, okay, I am looking at a network load balancer. Okay. And it's able to handle millions of, so this is another keyword, all right, millions of requests per second, right? Or if you hear for high performance, okay, then you are looking at a network load balancer, all right? But then this one is not, a load balancer is included in a free tier, but here is, there's no free tier. It's not included in the free tier. I don't think so. But there's I'm asked about free tier, stuff like on free tier. I haven't seen any except for CCP. All right, so that is for most of them. Um, all right, so that is for the network load balancer, and then the load balancer also takes one private IP, right, per AZ. So this means that it routes traffic to I mean, it gives you one private IP per AZ. So one way or the other, sorry, one static IP rather, right? So for every availability zone, it doesn't matter the number of instances, but you are able to get a static IP. So there is a concept where you would want, I forgot this question. You want to balance your load across maybe like the load balancer that will be able to handle millions of requests, per second, and you need a static IP address. For application load balancer, they give you an endpoint, right? Endpoint DNS address, right? Here you are able to get what a static IP address per availability zone. So if you have like a highly available load balancer, you are able to deploy two load balancers in two availability zones, right? And then you have a single endpoint. So you have it fronted by another load balancer. Okay. So let me try and then get a question on that. All right, let's move on. I will definitely remember
Yeah,
that.
Isaac,
Yeah.
why did you use low latency for the application load balancer and use less latency?
Yeah, so just to mean that it has a lesser latency than the
Then okay.
application.
Okay.
That's just
All
it.
right, sure.
All right. And then yes, I forgot one thing too. You know that the the applications or the applications that loads are balanced to are called what? Target groups. So target groups could be a group of applications or a list of what? EC2 instances. So the same thing with network load balancers, right? So the difference between a network load balancer target group, the difference between a network load balancer and application load balancer has to do with some of these above that I've put there. All right. And yes, so as I said, the target group for this one can be applications, um, EC2, right? And then IP addresses, and then they can also even be routed to an application load balancer as well, right? And then here the same thing, EC2, um, apps, and then you can also have even, I think you can have your API gateway as well, right? But there are a lot of application, anything that works. No, I think API gateway is not, but anything that works at the application level, I'll have to verify this either API gateway is part or not. All right, so let's move on. But we all know the target. Yes, yes,
Yeah, but APIs work at the application level.
yeah. So yes, API gateway should be part. Right. Yes, an application interface. Right. So it can also be what an ASG, like an auto scaling group that has the EC2 instances in them. All right. So that is it for network load balancer. And then for gateway load balancer, right, is the same concept, but here it's mainly for security. Okay. So you are looking at firewalls. Okay, you are looking at firewalls. you are looking at something we call identity provided services, right? We have something. So that's IDPS. We have deep packets. No, identity provided is not. I'm coming. Let me remember this. Oh, this thing. Okay, remember me. You know, is for cyber security. So it's like there is a system that is able to detect intruders. So intrusion, intrusion detection systems, right? And then we have intrusion protection systems here. So intrusion detection or protection systems.
Prevention.
A prevention, yes, intrusion detection or prevention. Yeah. Prevention systems. And then we have, payload, the packets, tracers, all those things, right? So what the gateway load balancer does is that, let me bring that annotator. Okay, so you have your users here, your application, it can be an EC2 instance here, right? And then you have deployed a firewall application here. Okay, your gateway load balancer sits here. So the users are going to access your applications via here, right? But normally for load balancers, they should just balance their load. Okay. Normally you should just balance the load and then send it here or there. But what happens is that the traffic will be routed to your security device for inspection. After it inspects, it will return whether, right, to communicate with the load balancer, whether to reject or accept, right? So if it is accept, then the traffic is now routed. Okay. And then another user comes, the same thing goes here, then it will communicate back and then to route the traffic. So that is basically how load balancers, gateway load balancers work. Okay. But for this, you need to update your your route table, right? So it is the only load balancer that requires routing, right? Like route table modifications or settings, right? So you need to update your route table, right, to receive every like traffic that is coming should be sent to what's it called, the third party the network appliances. So we call it third party network virtual appliances, right? All the intrusion detection systems and all those things. And then this works at layer 3, right? Oh, and what is layer 3? Let's go and look at layer 3. Let me delete these drawings. I hope I didn't close it. So let's layer 3 is what the network layer, and you can see where here that is where the packets are, the IPsec, ICMP, and then IP. So all these layer 3 communications, right? So these are where these things can be analyzed. ICMP packets, ICMP loads can be analyzed through an intrusion detection systems. IPs can be scanned, right? IPsec, and then packets also can be scanned as the layer 3. So that is where the gateway load balancer works, right? And then what it does is that it gives a single entry and then exit kind of. Okay, you can't pass anywhere, right? And one keyword, okay, if you hear anything that uses Geneva protocol on ports, this thing 6081 or 1681. 6081. All right. So if you hear anything that uses what the Geneva protocol on port 6081, then that is what your gateway load balancer. But anything that has to do with security, mainly security, all right, then you are looking at the gateway load balancer. And you might also see a statement like so you will want to deploy, scale, and manage a fleet. So let me just write everything. So deploy, scale, and manage, right? Fleets of third party virtual network systems. Or appliances. Okay. And then you are looking at the gateway load balancer on AWS. So these are the main difference between the load balancers. Okay. So the ALB, NLB, and then the gateway load balancer. So somebody also asked about sticky sessions. Okay. So let me see. Let me bring F12.